welcome everyone to integrate and automate any system on AWS. Before we get started, a quick forward-looking statement. We might be talking about information that will be happening in the future. Please don't make any sort of financial decisions based off the information you hear here today. All right, so introductions again. My name is Rohan Vediunkel. I'm a product marketing manager at MuleSoft, and I specifically focus on integration. So topics for today, we're covering three core topics. The first one, how to connect AWS to any system, essentially integration with AWS, how you can simplify that. We'll be talking about how to manage and govern any of your APIs. And we're also going to be talking about how you can streamline deployment of your APIs and your integrations to AWS. So let's start off with a little bit of integration. How can we kind of simplify the process to integrate with AWS? So if anyone's ever had to build integrations from scratch, you know it's a time-consuming and tedious process. And even once you've built it, right, there's maintenance of that integration, and that's never easy. One of the best parts about MuleSoft and any point platform is that it comes with hundreds of pre-built, out-of-the-box connectors for simplified, streamlined integration. We have over 200 different connectors to common systems and services, and AWS is no exception. With AWS, we have connectors for all the popular systems, whether it be S3, Lambda, SNS, SQS. The list goes on, and there's a lot of different options for you to quickly start integrating with the services that you're using. On top of all this, all these different connectors are available through our public marketplace, which is called Anypoint Exchange. You can see a little screenshot right there, and we'll actually dive into it in a little bit more detail in a second. But this makes it really easy to find a consolidated place to access all of these different connectors for your integrations. So we have our connectors, but how do you actually go ahead and build those integrations with the connectors? For that, we have our integrated development environment, which is called Anypoint Studio. All right, we can see a screenshot here. It makes it really, really easy to start building your integrations with simplified drag and drop low-code integration. Right? And it lets you integrate anything from AWS or to Salesforce, or on top of that, anything else you can really think of. So it's really, really powerful, really cool. And right now I'm going to take you guys through a quick demo. Go ahead and switch through to my own laptop. There we go. All right, so right here is Anypoint Exchange. I just mentioned it. Again, this is where you can go, our public marketplace, where you can actually check out all of our connectors. So if you go ahead and scroll through here, we can see, there's a ton of different options that we have available to a lot of, probably common systems that you can tell just by sight from the logo, right? But we are at AWS reInvent, and of course, we want to look for those Amazon-specific connectors that we have. So we go ahead and search Amazon. We can go ahead and look here. We have a ton of connectors, like I said, S3, we got Kinesis, DynamoDB, EC2, the list goes on. And again, this just goes to show that there's a lot of different options and flexibility to actually start integrating with these out-of-the-box pre-built connectors. So look, I also mentioned Studio. So I'm going to toggle over here. This is just a quick kind of overview of a flow and how you would build out an integration within Studio. Right, you can see there's a couple different steps, and we're leveraging two connectors in this flow here. We have our Salesforce connector on the left-hand side, and we have our S3 connector. So the use case we're trying to achieve, we're taking leads from Salesforce, any new leads, and we're storing those leads in a running list within S3. So we have our master list of all of our leads in S3, and anytime a new lead comes into Salesforce, we're taking that information, and we're going to push it over into S3 to kind of append to that list and make sure we have a comprehensive list there. So I'm just going to quickly go through the overview of what's happening in this scenario where you have our Salesforce connector. We've configured it to connect to Salesforce, and we've set it up with a bunch of different actions on the right-hand side here. You can see you have the ability to create new instances or delete, deploy, but in this case we're searching for new objects. So we're using that action of new object, and we're actually looking for new leads. We've specified leads, and we're specifying that we want it to check every 10 seconds. So it's very simple configuration, as you can see. You kind of tell it what you want, and it makes it really, really simple to start doing that. So once we have our information, and let's say a new lead comes in, from there we actually want to go ahead and, this is, we're going to transform it. We're going to use Salesforce or MuleSoft's programming language called DataWeave, and we're going to transform it, essentially formatting it into the way that we want it to look in S3. So we're going to format it with this transform tile, and we're going to store it for later use in this flow. Our next step is to leverage the Amazon S3 connector. What we're going to do here is use this connector to go to S3. We're going to reach out and grab that existing list of leads and pull it in. Again, we're going to transform it, make sure it's all formatted correctly, and then store it in a variable to use again. And finally, we're going to take both those variables, right? We have our new leads, and we have our existing list of leads. We're going to take those two, and we're going to use another transform message to combine them, and then push it back out into S3 to have a new updated list. And it's just as easy as that. Right? A couple steps, 2 connectors, a little bit of configuration, and you're able to build these sorts of integrations really, really easily. On top of that, just to kind of show you, we can also access the whole list of connectors from Exchange that we just reviewed. Right? So I can go to the right-hand side here, go into Exchange, I can search for Amazon, and then it'll go ahead and load that, and then boom, you see that whole list pop up. Let's say I want to use the DynamoDB connector. I'll go ahead, add it into my project, I'll hit finish, it'll download, poof, it pops up right there, and now I can start leveraging that in my actual flows. Doesn't make sense right now, but if you do have a use case for that, it's very easy to do. Awesome. Cool. So that was just a quick overview of connectivity and some of the integration options we have at MuleSoft. But next up, I also want to talk about how you manage and actually govern your APIs. So with MuleSoft, we do have industry-leading management and governance capabilities. And historically, the one kind of caveat to this was that this was more focused on the Mule APIs. But in this past year, we've actually opened that up with something we call universal API management, which allows you to manage, govern, and secure any and all of your APIs into your entire organization's ecosystem. So with universal API management, kind of the idea behind it is that we recognize the fact that a lot of organizations aren't building on a single platform or using a single language or using a single system. There's a lot of different systems and services out there that need to be leveraged in order to create a holistic environment. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're truly embracing that word universal and opening up our borders to let you kind of manage and govern anything. It's a suite of products that allows you to do just that. It's very powerful, so regardless if you're using Java or Python, or if you're deployed in the cloud, private cloud, public cloud, your local servers, whatever it might be, or even different sizes, right? If you have microservices or more monolithic services, Universal API Management has you covered there. And finally, I want to quickly discuss the deployment options that we have with any one platform. We do have very, very powerful or flexible deployment options that you get. Again, kind of putting the ball in your hands and saying, if you want to deploy in this environment, we will support that. So we have very flexible deployment options. On top of that, they're very easy and very easy to follow along with. We have guided installations that kind of simplify that. So let's double click into that a little bit and kind of cover, that at a higher level. So I'm going to cover kind of 2 sections here. The first one is going to be the MuleSoft specific deployment options, and then I'll talk about the AWS ones as well. So for the MuleSoft, we do have kind of 2 core options. We have, if you do want to have a little bit more control and deploy on your own infrastructure or your own network, we have Runtime Fabric, which is our containerized service that allows you to deploy and orchestrate any of your Mule APIs. Again, that's if you do want a little bit more control on that side. But on the flip side, let's say you do want us to kind of handle that information for you, or handle that infrastructure for you. We do have Cloud Hub 2.0, which is very powerful. It's a platform as a service. And again, it's hands-off for you, and makes it really, really easy to kind of deploy, and then we handle all the maintenance of that infrastructure. And then to kind of talk about a little more of the AWS side, the Amazon side, we do have options to deploy Runtime Fabric on both EC2 and EKS. Again, keeping it very flexible and giving you the option to kind of pick and choose exactly what and where you deploy. All right, to kind of summarize what we talked about today, there's a lot of information. We did cover our connectors and Studio and how you can achieve streamlined integration to any system using those. We talked about universal API management and how it's able to kind of manage any and all of your APIs and your integrations. And then finally, we ended off with some of our deployment options, not only for MuleSoft, but also for AWS. And as far as next steps goes, check this out here. we do have a couple great resources for you guys to go to. There's QR codes if you want to scan there. We did recently do a webinar with Discount Tire highlighting how they actually go through their AWS and MuleSoft integrations. They go through 3 core use cases there, which I think are really, really cool. Really informative. They go into detail on exactly how they achieve this integration using both MuleSoft and AWS. To the right of the middle one there, Salesforce AWS tutorial. That's exactly what I did at the start of the demo I did. If you do want to try doing that yourselves, it's available. There's probably a 10-step tutorial that you can go through and actually check it out. It's really, really cool. It takes probably about 10 to 15 minutes just to see how easy it is to actually start integrating with MuleSoft and Anypoint Platform. And then finally, if you want to learn a little bit more about Universal API Management, we do have a white paper there for you to take a look at. So that actually concludes my session. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening.